President Donald Trump's newly released national security strategy has ignited a political storm across Europe and drawn rare praise from Moscow. The 33-page blueprint, unveiled on December 7th, warns that Europe faces what it calls civilizational erasure. European diplomats quickly reacted, saying the language mirrors far-right rhetoric, with several former officials calling it inflammatory and destabilizing. Politico reports that the document triggered rage inside EU institutions, with one senior official calling the accusations very disturbing. Former Swedish Prime Minister Carl Bildt likened parts of the strategy to messaging coming out of the Kremlin, while French diplomat Gérard Araud said it reads like a far-right pamphlet. European leaders warn the framing could deepen internal divisions at a time when the continent faces a grinding war on its eastern flank. But in Moscow, the reaction is markedly different. The Kremlin has welcomed the shift in Washington's outlook, saying the new US posture appears to validate Russia's long-standing positions on NATO expansion and European security.
The adjustments we are seeing, I would say, are largely in line with our vision. And perhaps we can hope that this may be a modest guarantee that we will be able to continue working constructively together to find a peaceful settlement to the conflict in Ukraine, at the very least.
The strategy explicitly calls for ending the perception and preventing the reality of NATO as a perpetually expanding alliance. A central demand Russia has pushed for decades. Kremlin officials describe this as a potential turning point, one that could reshape negotiations over Ukraine and the future of Europe's security order. Analysts warn the messaging further strains the Transatlantic alliance. European governments fear Washington's shift away from collective defense, combined with internal political turbulence, leaves NATO cohesion in limbo. Several US lawmakers have also criticized the document for forsaking allies and risking a wider strategic vacuum.
There are statements against confrontation and in favor of dialogue and establishing good relations. That is what President Putin is talking about. On the one hand, that is encouraging. But on the other hand, we know what happens when everything is beautifully written down in theory, but the so-called deep state does everything differently.
Russia's approval, paired with Europe's alarm, underscores a widening transatlantic rift. European officials say the narrative pushed by Washington dangerously echoes conspiracy theories such as the Great Replacement and risks empowering far-right political movements across the continent. With war still unfolding in Ukraine and security debates intensifying across the EU, Trump's strategy lands at a sensitive moment. As Moscow signals openness and Europe raises alarms, the future of Western unity and NATO's long-term trajectory now hangs in the balance.